Welcome to HackerRank Radio. This is your host Adil Madbukwala. From spending 5 years as part of the United States Air Force to becoming a senior software engineer at one of the biggest tech companies in the world, Microsoft, it's been an arduous but rewarding journey for Jerome Hardaway. During this journey, he founded Vets Who Code, a veteran-led nonprofit that served as a launchpad for many veterans. He's also won several honors, such as being a Twilio Champion, Github Star, and Google Developer Expert. And his journey is far from stagnant. Jerome is now a HackerRank All-Star, and he hopes to educate our community about everything from landing your dream tech job to how to transition into a tech role. Jerome, congratulations on being recognized as a HackerRank All-Star, and welcome to HackerRank Radio.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Awesome. So with that, we'll get started. Jerome, let's start off by understanding from you. How did this decision of becoming a developer come about?
For me, the decision to become a developer was not a natural progression of things, right? I was in the military, left the military, figured this was going to be good. The United States was in the middle of a recession. The skills I had were not considered employable. So I had to transition. And one of the things that I saw people were talking about, I noticed was that people that learned how to write software had not had the exact same experiences as everyone else. So that motivated me to learn SQL. And then from there, sky is the limit.
There are so many people like you, Jerome, who are breaking career barriers. Do you think the stigma around hiring veterans in tech roles and companies is still prevalent?
Yes. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You just go to Twitter, and the stigma of hiring people from underrepresented communities is relevant. But I don't really want to call it a stigma. I call it, in the end, human beings naturally are lazy. And that piece of paper that you get from a university is just easier to understand than trying to quantify what somebody's skill set has that isn't there. So it's a duality of relationship, right? Where you, the hiring manager, should focus on creating a way to quantify someone's skills if they don't have a degree. But I, as a person looking to get hired, should be focusing on advocating for myself and selling myself and my general skills to you to make it easy for you, right? That's one of the things I always teach my veterans is, you do not want the hiring manager having to look if you have the skills. So for the hiring manager to, be so certain that you have the skills, your interviews are weird that they're so good. I just had a troop whose last interview for a job he's about to receive is they took him out for beer. That's what you should want. So that's how I look at the experience, where, while we're working to get to this happy medium, both sides have to continuously work to improve their processes.
I think that's very well said. Pretty much both sides need to be working on the spectrum to kind of hit it where it's supposed to be. Jerome, though they're seen as professions that are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, what are some parallels you can draw between working in the Air Force and also working as a developer? What were some skills you gained in the Air Force that have been super helpful to you as a developer?
I would say the most important skill is to be able to look at dry documentation forever. I would say being able to pick up processes, right, and nomenclature of things. When you look at firearms and writing code and software, they are really similar. And my AFSC or my job code in the Air Force was a very combat arms specific job code. When I, done that pattern matching and broken it down closer to how we used to break down M4 carbines and the nomenclature and those resources and memorization of that tool to how JavaScript, it just correlates perfectly. And I think that's something that I've discovered among a lot of other veterans. And another one that's a great one is on-the-job training. We understand that what you learn in school and what it's going to take to get the job done can be two very different things. And you have to be able to adapt 20% that impacts the 80%, right? Because the harsh reality is when we look at the 80-20 rule, it's actually when apply humans, it's kind of wonky, right? In reality, it's the 20% of the things that you do all the time that impacts the 80%, everything else you do. I really don't work a lot. It's just that the work that I do is so impactful that it impacts the other 80% of my day or my week or my month, right? So that's how I look at it. I think that comes with the nonprofit and like just working in service-related industries, in general, right? You look at the impact of what you want instead of velocity or volume, right? It's like, okay, I can do this one thing and the impact can be tremendous, or I can, do all these little things and gain velocity and it looks like I'm busy, but I'm really not doing anything that's impacting that revenue line, which as a programmer is the real. I know a ton of programs that can code their butts off, but I know maybe 4 programmers who understand it. The true science of coding is, being able to build something meaningful that actually impacts the organization or the business or whatever that they're a part of.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's get deeper into your career journey, Jerome. Talk to us about Wetsuit Code. What's your journey been like so far?
Crazy. I guess that's the best way to say it. It's been crazy. Like, first and foremost, I don't know how it's done overseas, but in America, for Veteran Services Organization, for the past, since 2014, I've been one of the youngest, if not the youngest, the Veteran Services Organization leader, right? The average age in the nonprofit helping people side is 50, 55. And I started when I was 28. So what goes into that is I've always been the person that has looked at the, way of doing nonprofits as backwards from what it should be. If you look at most nonprofits, their outreach versus their services and what they consider success points and success metrics are very different. And versus mine, like my success metrics is pretty simple. The veteran has to get a job writing software or building software. They have to be a part of that software pipeline. There's no customer support. There's no, hey, you got a job doing BI or something, like that. It's you are writing software or you're part of software pipeline in some way. You're either doing UX, your QA, your project management, you're on GitHub, you're pushing, pulling tickets, you're in the stand-ups. That's my metric, right? That's the only metric for me that matters. And when you put it like that, in that black and white to the user, to my client, which is the donor, they appreciate that more. But most nonprofits, they don't do that. So I've always been kind of the black sheep on that, on top of I've been a very big proponent, opponent to the vet tech programs, because it turned the veteran services, or it turned helping veterans not from a calling into another revenue stream for for-profit code schools. So I've been the underdog, but as you've seen in our media and stuff, we keep winning because for me, it's a calling. I know exactly how it feels to come back home and be in a situation where people are saying, thank you for your service, and looking for your resume, or they're not even giving you a job, right? This is a $12 an hour gig and you think I can't do the menial tasks required of this gig because you have some type of stigma against veterans. So I walk with that chip on my shoulder all the time, right? Because that's where I've been. So that helps me push or Wetsuit Code a lot and think about Wetsuit Code as I grow my own career. What can I be doing to better other people's transition and make it easy? And really recently in the idea of let's, do something, all of the interview prep and all that stuff in the front end, and then focus on that. Let's go ahead and, get the anxiety of what we are expected for them to know and, what their resume should look like and all that stuff. Teach them how to write resumes. Teach them how to behave and move in a tech company first before we get to all the techie stuff, right? Because in the end, that's the stuff that really gets you, right? I see so many people who go through so many tutorials, so they don't understand how to take a tutorial, pull a singular feature or the thing that you're supposed to learn from that tutorial, and then add it to their personal portfolio or add it to a product that they were supposed to build. I meet so many people who have 8 billion little baby projects and tutorials and like JavaScript calculators, but they don't understand Git flow and how to work as a team and things like that, collaborative working, or their features, the things that they build just aren't impactful enough. And that's something that at Vetsu Code I've really been focused on, making sure that none of my veterans ever have that issue, right? I have just had a cohort, our biggest feature on our website, that whole cohort pushed that feature. And I was like, that is something that's pretty amazing when you think the idea of, if you're new to code, having a major feature on a website that's going to be getting hits all the time, and you learn how to work with a business client outside of the org that you're in, and it was open source work. A lot of programs are not giving that level of responsibility to their students. And that's what I pride myself on. What makes veterans different? Like, I can tell you, hey, I'm going to trust you with our website, and I'm going to trust you to not, piss off this third-party client and make a bad name for us, so that way you can do this and accomplish this mission. And that's what we do, right? And that's something that no code school, no coding program in the country and the planet does right now. No one has the guts to trust their troops or trust their students to do the type of things we do. And it's been paying off for us, right? So I've been building this brick by brick and been focusing on depth versus scale of width. And, because I've done that, even though I might graduate 26 troops a year, my troops or my students are like significantly superior stock, and they don't have to spend as much time as you will. I have to go to free code camp to learn the same thing, because I, make sure that my students learn the why they're doing something, and not just the do this so that way you can know how to code better. Like, no, there's a reason why you should do this. Here's how a developer who's mid or senior would make this decision. Here's why, I would make the decision between Bootstrap and Tailwind, because, Tailwind doesn't really work well with small to mid-scale web apps. It also doesn't have a robust backend. If I'm going to do a basic front end, one pager, I'm not going to call Tailwind and do it. It's too big, too heavy for that, right? I'll use plain CSS, or I might use Bootstrap, because Bootstrap actually is designed to grow your project, whereas Tailwind does not have the capabilities, or is not thought of. It isn't thought of the process of using on small sites. They want big scalable companies and sites to use their stuff. So that is why you don't do that, right? How does a programmer think? How does a developer think when they pick a tool, right? It's how I use Git CLI. It's how I use GitHub Pages. It's how I use GitHub Actions. This is how I utilize my GitHub Actions, my Netlify, to ensure that I can run jobs and run actions to update my blog all the time, right? This is how I do my CI/CD, how I implement DevOps with AWS. This is how I do these things. This is the why I do these things. That is something that you have to go to somebody who truly, one, has that experience at scale, and two, cares. And that is something that we can do because we focus on small numbers and, tightly couple collaborative training. I guess that's how BWC has been. It's like, I treat it like how I would have wanted to be treated when I first learned how to code. I guess it's the best way to say it.
That is so inspirational. Congratulations, Jerome. You're doing a phenomenal job. And on inspiration is my next question. I'd love to understand, who inspires you? I'm sure there are people in Vetsu Code who you potentially look up to, who inspired you. And then there are also people outside the Vetsu Code world. There could be potentially business leaders, technology leaders, whose stories and purposes speak to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Actually, the people that inspire me are the people that didn't make that call, right? Like, I have people called what I have. I've been called, I have like superhuman willpower, Captain America code, all this other stuff. And none of that's true. The harsh reality is I come from a career field in the Air Force that has a really high rate, and during the OEF, OIF combative strategies overseas, that they die. People would die. And then they come back home, or people who didn't die overseas in combat, they come back home, they die from suicide and things of that nature. So for me, it's about, I'm trying to be the best that ever did it because somebody sacrificed for me to be the best that ever did it, right? I'm doing it for everybody that can't come home and put boot to ass. Excuse my language, but like, that's how I do it. That's my push. I'm trying to be the best because there's so many people, sons and daughters, dads, moms, husbands, wives, that, from Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Army, they can't come back home and do it as big as I do it, right? So that's why I do it so big. I feel like people who come back home and try to do the mediocre vet bro behavior, they sit on their butts and they just try to, level off and feed off of that type of stuff. I feel like, they're doing a disservice to those memories, right? Because it's on us to be a chevron of what our society should be by showing us. And I feel like that's a spit in the face of their sacrifice. So that's like what motivates me. Those are the people that inspire me. Just they're not here anymore today to, hug their loved ones. It's a little bit morbid. And I know I can be kind of stoic in nature, but I feel like there's no greater way to be pushed than that. Like I'm here today and somebody else isn't, and they deserve their sacrifice to be respected by me to do the best.
Thank you for sharing that, Jerome. Jerome, let's talk a little bit about how you spoke about depth matters more than width, right? And speaking of depth, you're the executive director of Vetsu Code. What's your larger vision for the organization?
So my larger vision is I want to go 1.5 engineers, right? I learned that from a friend of mine called Narando. I want 1.5 engineers. I want you to, when you see that hash flag and you see our military coin and you see veteran with our sweatshirt, that that is not your typical entry-level junior developer, right? That's one of the reasons why we focus on creating complex projects that client, which is the hiring managers, things like that, they can touch, right? That's what we want to do. Because I want you to know that, you're not dealing with some, kid from where they got a bunch of 3 piddly personal portfolio projects on their portfolio. You're dealing with somebody who understand the entire aspect of the business of coding, which is very rare in our tech culture, right? Not only, they know how to code, they understand how to build logic and computer logic, but they also understand business logic and are able to coincide and make those decisions with each other. And are like, which decision is better, right? They're not going to go and try to sell you on the newest thing, even though it may not make sense for the business, right? I value depth better than width because I like, especially, you see it in business all the time. It's scale, right? Make a product that's just good enough that people like it and then scale it. Right. That's not really the type of school or type of background that I came from. I come in the military where in the Air Force and in security forces particularly, we're always training because, when it comes to Air Force space, the most important asset is the planes. And you get deployed in a situation where you're probably going to be deployed and there's not going to be an airstrip, and you have to secure what will be the airstrip until, we get these civil engineers in there so that the planes can land. Because if the planes can't fly, then it doesn't matter anything else with the job. That's the closest line of our mission is the planes. So that's, what I focus on when it comes to depth, right? I want to be able to do what I can do at a level, go deeper into it in a level that makes sense practically, right? Like I'm not that dude that's going to be running around here preaching like, knowing all the big O's of everything, right? I am that person that's going to understand that, you should probably understand how cloud native technologies work, because that's a really big push on the market right now, and how to leverage those cloud native technologies with GitHub and GitHub Actions, and ensuring how to do make those pipelines, that CI/CD, and ensuring that you understand Webpack as well. Then your core front end skills, right? Because the way I look at it is we have DevOps, which is like type of front end engineering that focuses on the build tools like Gulp and Webpack. I don't think anybody's using Gulp anymore. I just aged myself out there. And then you have people who are UI developers, right? So you have UI, then you have DevOps, then you have DevOps, and then you have people that are doing server-side code. And you need to understand each layer of that and get you don't have to know it all, but you just gradually get better and keep pushing yourself, keep pushing down deeper to understand more of that type of stack, which is why I love like the serverless movement, because it's so empowering to people when they're learning. and they can go deeper into understanding things versus, having to switch languages just to do the same thing. So that's where I think of like, when I think of depth, I think of like, how do I get good at this and get to the next level to make this better? Or, how do I think of business logic on this, right? Like, okay, I got a website, but HR manager, recruiter is going to look at my website for like 3 seconds, right? I need to make my hero image something that's going to make her stay sooner. I need to make it also a way for her to quickly get my resume without having to download something, because it's 2021 and nobody download anything anymore. It might be 2022. Like, people don't like downloading things to their website, to their computer, unless they absolutely have to. So how do I ensure this person gets my resume, right? How do I ensure this person is able to contact me immediately, right? I need a contact form on my website. I need to be able to use Twilio, get a number from Twilio and put it on my website where they can directly text me, and then they can get everything they need from me. I need to be able to find a way to get that person's email, which is what I do with the contact form, into my pipeline so I can have correspondence with that person, right? I'm always thinking of these type of things like, okay, how do I make a one-page portfolio but then make it work for me when I'm sleeping, right? So I can focus on the things that matter. What's the depth of that, right? Scott Hanselman calls it height, but I think of it more as depth, right? Because you look at something, then you break it down a little bit more, and you break it down a little bit more until you get to the molecular level. And that's how I look at it when I work with my veterans. Like, okay, I made good front-end engineers. Now what I want to do, I want good front-end engineers with serious DevOps skills. Like, I've already gotten to the point where, if you're coming to VWC and you're looking for front-end, you're sold, right? I don't have to worry about selling us on our front-end skills. Everybody in the JavaScript game knows who we are, knows my vets, knows what we can do. So I don't have to do that. What I do have to do is now make sure that my veterans know how to get deeper, how to progress in their careers, how to learn new things, what new things to learn, make sure that I'm forecasting the right new things for them. And, also, broadcasting to our followers and people who care about what we do. Guess what? My people are always evolving. You should definitely keep looking at them, even if it's not a front-end role. If it's a DevOps role, you should definitely come over here. I probably got a few people that you can look at, right? So that's what I think of the depth. My favorite rapper is Rick Ross, and he has a book, and he says, this type of thing of, I don't want to move fast, I want to move correctly. That's like a mantra that I've been really sticking to right now. I'm not in a rush to do everything as fast as possible, especially last year, we ended up in Business Insider, twice, right? So I have the accolades of what we can do. Now I just want to take my time and focus on getting to that next level, right? And helping people and identifying those people who should be a part of this team to take us on the next level, right? So that's like my overall vision of SU Coach, just, focusing on going deeper and deeper into modern stacks to be able to empower veterans that come from different walks of life than your typical CS person.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Jerome, what role has HackerRank played in your learning journey?
In my learning journey, HackerRank has, one of the things I like to do is with HackerRank is I like to try to see like where I stand in regards to that processes. HackerRank does a very good thing of like, it understands that the reality of the world is there's a way that we want the world to be and a way the world is. And you feel that gap, right? So we will all like the way the world will be. It's like, all right, you look at my work, look at the scope of that, and that you make your decision with that. But the harsh reality is a lot of people, they want to see you solve code challenges and, things of that nature. And the truth is, a lot of code challenges don't relate well to the practicality of work, but HackerRank trains you on that, right? It makes it so that while you're training me for the interview and for proficiency of my language, right? I'm seeing things and discovering things in the language that I didn't even know because I've been building things one way and focusing on the things that on the tools I already had, but with HackerRank's challenges, I may have to go and research something and go deeper in my toolbox, right? So it expands the toolbox. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Python lately because I've been doing a lot more DevOps and data engineering stuff, which is insane because you told me 12 years ago I'd be doing data engineering, I'd be like, that is not something that I would have believed. but that helps me, get, especially when I'm working on trying to get familiarity of Python fast. HackerRank helped me be able to solidify and go through that. So that's like the biggest way I personally use it. I also use it to see what type of code challenges should I be teaching or having my veterans do, right? We have a code challenges channel that every day around the same time throws out a code challenge that people have to solve it. It helps me, all right, what's going on in the market and how should I better prepare my troops, right? Like those. So that's another way that we're always using how we leverage HackerRank.
Awesome. And if there were one learning you had, one piece of advice you'd like to give away to young aspiring engineers and developers, a 30-second take, what would that be?
That's a good one. Enjoy the process. I think that's the best one, right? People are always looking at the goal and the paycheck, but no one really takes time to enjoy it. I think it's like super cool stuff that I do now. I think it's the most radical stuff ever. I can't believe I'm going to pay for this. So that's what I would tell people. Like, enjoy the process, because one day you're going to be looking at it and you're going to forget, right? I think because that's what happens to most senior level engineers, most engineering managers. They forget those days, the struggling engineering days, right? The newbie days. And when you focus on enjoying it and not beating yourself up and expecting yourself to be at the same level this guy is, you don't know this person's story. It helps you make sure that your number one opponent is yourself. So you're not beating yourself up by measuring yourself by other people. You're just focusing on being 1% better every day, right? So I think that's just enjoy the process. Take every little win, pat yourself on the back, and don't measure yourself. Imposter syndrome is only a thing if you're comparing yourself to your peers, right? One, or if there's things you should be doing that you aren't doing, right? Like that's, if there's something usually anxiety and stuff like that comes up because there's something that you should be doing that you fully have the capacity of doing and you're getting better, but you're just not doing. And you have to, I call it hero up. You got to hero up and do that thing that might suck. You might have to miss some friends, go hang out with friends. You might have to miss a Netflix show or two and have to hide your phone from Twitter because you don't want all the spoilers. But the long game of it, it's going to be worth it. So that's how I look at it.
Totally agree with you. And that is such incredible advice, right? Enjoy the process. It's something that I believe in as well, which is the journey is the reward. It's not the destination that we're chasing more often than not, but it's actually the process, the ability to just go through from point A to point B. And when you traverse that journey itself is quite something. So I think that couldn't have been a better way to wrap up the podcast. Jerome, congratulations on being a HackerRank All-Star. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And thank you guys for the honor.